beyond reluctant handshakes. Last November, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared a 10-month partial settlement freeze in the occupied West Bank, and it was only partial. The Arab League went on to endorse indirect, or what they called, proximity talks. Direct talks followed this September, but a few weeks in, the settlement freeze expired, and Mr. Abbas, the Palestinian president, has reiterated that he won't start talks again unless the settlements stop. Bit of a stalemate, and Netanyahu has so far resisted calls to stop. But publicly, the American president says he's still optimistic. In September at the United Nations, Obama said within a year an independent Palestinian state is possible. Well, you know, as I said that, there were snorts from the two people I'm going to introduce you to now, snorts of disbelief that he could still be saying the same thing. Let's introduce Samer Shehata, Professor of Arab Politics at Georgetown University, and Jim Zogby, President of the Arab American Institute. It would appear that you don't think much of what he's done or what he's saying.
That was Samer who snorted.
I think it was both of you.
I snorted, yes.
Yeah.
No, I think he's been very disappointing with regard to Middle East policy in general, and with regard specifically to moving any kind of Palestinian-Israeli peace process along. He hasn't put any pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu or the Israeli government to do what is, you know, what is required by international law.
Well, let me ask Jim, if you didn't snort, do you think he's done a good job?
No, I think it's too early to tell what kind of a job he's done. I think what he's done is applied pressure in a haphazard way. There's been a bit of meandering. There certainly were times when pressure was applied, and it began to have an impact, at which point they'd pull back from the pressure. And so I think that they've undercut their own pressure.
Give us an example of when that pressure was applied.
Well, I think rather quite decidedly in the very beginning of the administration, when he announced the freeze, and Mrs. Clinton was very solid on not one stone, not one building, etc. And then after the March blow-up with Joe Biden in Jerusalem, you know, having your Secretary of State say this is an insult to the President of the United States and an insult to the United States of America itself.
This was when they announced plans or started building again while Biden was there.
That's pretty tough talk,
yeah.
and it began to have an impact. But then they pulled back from that, and I think that undercut themselves. I think that the record has not yet been written, and we'll see what happens as we move forward. But they have hurt themselves along the way.
It's a record, if you want to take the gramophone analogy, that's been stuck in the same groove for more than 60 years now.
That, I think, is true.
Samer, where does it go from here?
Well, I don't think it goes very far. I mean, either with regard to this issue or with regard to other issues that people who study the Middle East are interested in. Iraq, the escalation of the war in Afghanistan.